It is 6:31 on my watch. I'm calling this hearing to order. The purpose of this hearing is for the public to see what we have determined are the needs of the community in terms of cable service and also our community television. And so we've done an extensive study which the state calls Ascertainment, and we are today presenting, this is an overview. Certainly it's a detailed report, and anybody who wants the detailed report, we can email it to you because it's thick and we don't want to cut down trees just for that. We will be happy to send it to you electronically. I give the floor. Oh wait, I just want to say, there's one person who has been instrumental besides Renee and myself in terms of doing the work to put this ascertainment together, and that is Dennis Arsenault, who is the vice chairman of the committee. Dennis is away, and I want to say that he did yeoman's work in terms of digging up statistics and information and federal rules and state rules, and we must applaud the fact that he did this massive amount of work, and then we all sat and pulled it together into a cohesive box, if you will. So on that note, I give Renee the floor.
I just want to let everybody know that this 5-town cable advisory committee, and we do have a slide set on this, which I would direct your attention to, represents Great Barrington, Lee, Lenox, Sheffield, and Stockbridge. Our contract with, or our cable TV license with Spectrum is up in February of 23. So as a result, there is a state-mandated process from the Massachusetts Department of Telecommunications and Cable that we have followed through. The work that we have presented to Charter Communications, whose brand is Spectrum, as well as to the state Department of Telecommunications and Cable, and to each of our town's 5 select boards, is called this Ascertainment Report. And this is very meaty and quite detailed, but I'm very proud to have been a part of writing this. It should be soon on each of the 5 towns' respective websites for you to peruse. There's basically a couple of parts to it. First of all, you may remember we did the survey. I think that took place starting like in May, a while ago. March. And
we closed it.
Over 500 people responded to that. So that survey, where you as residents and cable TV subscribers let us know your thoughts to a number of questions. And you also gave us 298 separate written comments on the question, is there anything else you would like us to know? So thank you for that. That informed a lot of this ascertainment document. So we do have our ascertainment report. I want to make a disclaimer, first of all, that this is not the opinion of the 5 towns, their select boards, or their administrators. This is the opinion of the 3 of us on the Cable Advisory Committee that put this together. Also, as part of the Ascertainment Report, is a proposed cable TV renewal license that we included in our documentation to everyone that I listed earlier. And we're going to get into that in a little bit more. So, Rich, could I have the next slide, please? I'm not going to read this for you, but I just want to go over that there's 2 phases to this formal and very methodical timeline renewal license process set up by the state of Massachusetts through their Department of Telecommunications and Cable. There's basically 2 phases, and then there's a lot of little sub-steps under each phase. The first phase is called ascertainment, which means to find something out for certain. And as the state puts it in their documentation, the ascertainment process protects the municipality's right to assess what's going on and to determine, as Linda mentioned earlier, the community needs and interests. It also allows the cable TV company, in this case Charter, to also have a very specific role in this entire process. We have finished phase 1, ascertainment, and that's what we're talking about tonight and is in this document. Phase 2 is negotiating the cable TV renewal license for another 10 years. I think it's important to note that we don't have people knocking down the door for a second cable TV company. We had, prior to Charter Communications taking over the Time Warner cable licenses that were negotiated, I believe it was in 2013. 2013? 12. And then Charter bought Time Warner Cable a few years later. The whole market, and we can go to the next slide, please. The whole market has really changed, not only in terms of television, cable television streaming, but we have learned over the last 10 years, those of us that have been on this committee, that a lot more needs to be done in our license. It's a much more sophisticated market right now, and we need to do things to determine the needs of our community, which is the ascertainment process. So in a nutshell, what we have done is we have solicited input. A lot of that came through the survey, and we really appreciate everyone who took the time to fill out that survey. We've also met with community organizations, including our towns, to understand what each of our towns' needs are. We've reviewed financial reports, we've reviewed customer complaints, we've toured facilities, and one of the things that Dennis was really instrumental on, he loves data. I like to put data together myself, and I like to write. But Dennis loves data, and I don't know that this committee would have put together this report without him.
Not as thoroughly as
he reviewed so many cable television licenses across the state of Massachusetts and with other carriers.
And across the country, too, to look at other trends.
Okay, so we were more concerned about what people had signed in Massachusetts, because that means that it's been accepted by DTC, and it means that there is a Massachusetts precedent. We found a lot of things that were in Verizon and Comcast contracts that are not in Charter contracts, and that may have been just an issue of Charter assuming the contracts from Time Warner Cable. We, as the 5-town cable committee and our respective 5 towns, are the first ones to have a contract renewal process for cable television with Charter. So we're kind of the first ones, and we feel strongly that we will have a role to play in the tone for up and down Berkshire County as the other Charter cable television licenses expire and need to be renewed. Okay, so we also had this in everyone's hands by the 1st of September, so we have fulfilled our legal obligation as required by the state for phase 1. So let's go to the next slide. Now, this is completed, and if you take the time to read this report, which I really encourage you to do, it is very straightforward. It is evidence-based. It does not pull any punches. It says what is good about our relationship with Charter Communications, and it says where we feel there needs to be improvement. All right, and we have spent a lot of time putting together a proposed cable TV renewal license that we are going to be very anxious to see what Charter Communications return proposal is going to be. They have 30 days, as recommended by Mass DTC, to respond to this. Linda, may I just mention our conversations today?
Sure.
Yeah. Given, Labor Day and the start of school, Charter Communications has asked us for a 30-day extension on that, which we are very willingly granting. And so that slide should say that they will have a proposal back to us by October 31st, okay? And again, all of these documents have been asked to be posted on each town's website. Next slide, please. So when we go into phase 2, which we have entered as of tonight, one of the things that we need to do is hold a public hearing, which this is that public hearing. We have asked them to submit their proposed cable TV renewal license by October 31st. We now go into a 4-month period where we will determine a number of things, whether we feel, for instance, Charter has the assets and the longevity to enter into another contract for 10 years. I think we probably know the answer to that. We will, once we have that proposal, we will be going over it with a fine-tooth comb. We go into the multiple steps that the state has laid out, and we will follow them to a T. We also have retained, all of the 5 towns have contributed to a legal fund, and we have retained KP Law as our legal advisor. If at, let's just say February 23rd, there is no agreement in place, the current cable TV license will continue, and no one will see any interruption in service. The 5-town cable committee is authorized in the cable agreement and our agreement with the towns to negotiate on behalf of the towns. Any select board member, thank you for being here, Ed, is welcome to participate in that. But I just want to make sure that while we are going to do our very best, it is up to each of the 5 towns' select boards as the issuing authority for these individual licenses as to whether they will accept or reject the cable TV renewal license that we negotiate on their behalf. So you have the final say, all right? Next slide, please. Now, I want to just lay out, because this is always a point of confusion, what the committee can negotiate or may negotiate and what we cannot. This is based on, state law and also FCC law. We may negotiate, we can negotiate all of those items that are listed. And again, the survey comes into play so much in determining the town and community needs. We also have, at regular meetings like this and through letters, etc., received town resident input. We frequently hear consumer complaints, either as individual reps for our respective towns, or they come to meetings or they call us, all right? So we're very much aware of that. We also have evaluated and will continue to do so Spectrum's performance, what are the unserved parts of each of the 5 towns, and what we can do to improve service. Now, from our extensive review of other Massachusetts cable TV contracts, we have a lot of ideas, all right? And that gets into the next item. And we also can negotiate CTSB or PEG access channels, capital and operational funding. We are extremely aware of how important CTSB is to our local news and our local understanding of governmental events. And we thank CTSB for recording this tonight. Now, we cannot negotiate the price of the cable service or added fees. And I know that's a disappointment to people because one of the largest things we heard in our community service, and Dennis gave a presentation on this at our last quarterly meeting, was that many people feel that cable service is too high. 95% of the survey respondents said that they would love to have a la carte programming. We also can't negotiate programming. So if we kind of keep in mind what we can do and what we can't do, or what we can attempt to do, but we have no opportunity to. We can ask on these bottom items, but they do not have to be negotiated. Charter can refuse to negotiate. All right, next slide, please. So with that, what do we want in the renewal license? This is, the next two slides are kind of a short summary. Our suggested proposal license, renewal license, is quite extensive and there's a lot of words in it. We want to provide more funding for PEG operations. We want quarterly rather than annual payments, and we want 5% full funding as allowed by FCC. We also want to raise our capital expense project contributions. I think it's currently 50 cents. We want to go to 95 cents. Maybe it's, I'm not sure what it is. 95? Okay, then we'll stay with that. This is for the Ctsb infrastructure. If you've gone to the new facility, if you've taken advantage of their video classes, of going in and recording a program, they've got a lot of equipment. This needs to be constantly updated. We want to have additional license renewal protections. And rather than going into that in detail, I'm just going to refer you to this license and proposed license, and we'll be talking about that more in detail. But that has to do with some of the things that we'll see on the next slide. We are, interestingly, when Dennis did a review of the state of Massachusetts and where channel assignments are for paid channels, those of us who remember back to the time of Time Warner Cable, we were below channel 50 for all three of those paid channel assignments. Now we're at 1301, 1302, 1303, who can remember this, who can find it. Almost every other vendor or cable TV provider has paid channels that are in the low stream, not up in the 1300s, okay? So we are going to be asking for that. We also, if you go to 1301 to try and find out what's going on one of the paid channels, the programming guide is black. You have to turn to the channel and just see what's going on. So you can never plan on what you could watch. You never know when the Great Barrington Select Board is going to be on, or this meeting, or any other meeting, depending on whether you're on community, government, or education. You just take a chance by hitting that button and seeing what's there. We also want the channels which are not in high def right now, we want them to be converted. And we really want our PEG channels to have the same kind of broadcasting quality as every other commercial channel. It's really gross, it's really horrible. They're all, torn apart. You can't understand them, they're all fuzzy, it's quite bad. We want a 10-year renewal license term, and we want to have full price disclosures on any subscription offers, including what's going to be the rate after the promotion period. Next slide, please. And again, we're kind of hitting the highlights. Yes?
You want a question? Can you go back just one slide real quick? What is the percent funding of PEG operations now?
What is the what?
The percent funding of PEG operations now.
I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. Rich, do you know? I'd have to go back and look at the contract. I'm focused on the new one.
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact number. Yeah.
It's 5%.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's 5.
If it's the same, then it's going to be no problem.
Yeah.
Okay? Thank you, John.
But you're welcome.
I'm going to take that as agreement. Okay? All right, going forward to the next slide. When we get into the actual contract before, we have much stronger performance bonds, and we have added specific liquidated damages. We do not have liquidated damages in our current contract. So if there is a disagreement on compliance, it's she said, he said, she said, he said, he said, she said. We don't have any mechanism to go after non-performance, okay? So we want that in our new contract, and that is standard across the industry here in Massachusetts.
And I want to add something to this. That is something that we had in previous contracts. And we gave it up for something else because we never had any problems that warranted that
With Time Warner.
with Time Warner.
Yeah.
So we gave that away in our bargaining on the last contract 10 years ago. And so that we could have something else that we wanted that wasn't part of the standard kind of contract.
Yeah, and you know,
I think we made a mistake.
yeah, so shame on us, and we're not here to beat Charter or Spectrum up. You know, we just have realized over 10 years that things have changed, and the world now is such that it's best to have it in writing rather than an understanding. So the other thing we want is we want much stronger language protecting our subscribers' rights. And these are stated in the FCC and Mass DTC, so we don't think we're asking for anything other than to put it in writing. We have had problems with complaints and resolution within specific timeframes. That's not new to anyone who follows these meetings. So we want stronger language that will put this into the contract, so we do not need to take it up and take it up and take it up. The language will guide us in how we are going to handle these matters. We want greater insurance policy requirements. The cost of things have gone up, including property damage and suits in the last 10 years, and we want more specific coverage, more types of coverage. We want to add a determination of breach so that we know if the contract has been breached on both sides, and we don't have to have that discussion. It's written, and we both have the same protections. A lot of these protections are as much for Charter as they are for the 5 towns. We also want, and we've included new forms to calculate annual revenues, which come right into play with how we are paid in terms of paid fees, and also just a clear understanding of what the numbers are. Resolution procedures, we've talked a little bit about further, but we want time frames, specific time frames on a resolution of a complaint so that it doesn't drag on and drag on. And some of that is the customer's responsibility, and some of it is Charter. So we want to strengthen that. Again, we talked about the PEG video quality equal to commercial stations, and we really would like to have closed caption per ADA and FCC law. Next slide. Again, this is just a summary. So, in summary, we are committed to working as hard as we can to negotiate the best possible cable TV renewal license. The cable TV market is changing. As you know now, so much is being streamed. We didn't have Hulu. We didn't have Netflix. Really, they were just coming in. We didn't have Amazon. Many people don't even have cable TV anymore, especially as you go down the age from older to younger. It's not down here. So they face their own market challenges, and so do we. One of the things that is the most challenging for both of us is the subscribers pay for these PEG fees, in a sense. If you don't have subscribers, you don't have fees being paid. So we are going to be working as a group, and we'll be back to the selectmen on this, to really support the Massachusetts law that almost got passed this session, to put fees on streaming. They have the content, they borrow it, they don't pay anything. So that's not going to be an easy one, but the Mass legislature has started that. So that's what we're going to try and tie in with, and that would spread the burden evenly, no matter where you get your programming or where you pull things off. And I know Rich from Ctsb has told us that so many of our customers for Ctsb go straight to streaming. They never go to the channels, therefore they're not necessarily paying unless they have cable TV. So that's a quick summary. I really encourage you to read this. It's a document that I know we are very proud of, and a lot of time went into this, so it's going to really inform us going forward. There's a sheet down there. If you want a copy of all of this, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Just put your name and your email, and we'll take care of it. And if you have any questions, why don't you ask them and we'll see what we can do with them, okay?
Have a
Mind if we
question?
ask a few questions?
Go right ahead.
All right, so my first question is, when we talk about the 5% of cable revenues, does that reflect the sort of base cable pricing? Does it include premium channels, and does it include on-demand purchases through the cable system?
Yeah, well, it's defined in the contract. Gross revenue, there's a definition for it.
And what is it?
Contract. I don't know the whole thing off the top. It includes a lot.
And that's one of the reasons, you know, if you give me a few minutes, I'll see if I can find it. I don't know this contract by heart.
Okay.
But that's one of the reasons why we want to know the annual revenues.
Right.
Because there's lots of different pots.
Look in definitions.
And then, well, look at that. My second question is, on the What We Want screen, they all sound great, but I'm wondering about what costs they add to the performance of the contract and whether those costs are going to be passed on to subscribers.
Like what specifically?
Well, I mean, there
Could we
was
just go
seven.
back a couple of
Yeah, the one
things?
that's the What We Want screen.
Yeah, language doesn't add anything. You know, like having complaint resolutions and complaints reported correctly as required by law doesn't add anything to the contract. So that, what?
Well, I mean,
No, I'm not trying to challenge you, I'm just trying to get an idea of what you think will add money.
HD broadcast, does that cost anything? I don't know. We'll go to the next slide. There was more.
Yeah, HD broadcasting is gonna cost something.
And performance bonds, I mean, you gotta buy bonds.
They have bonds right now.
Okay.
We're just asking for more money to be in a performance bond to be in tune with the times.
Okay.
And all of this can be negotiated, so I'm not sure that they're going to agree to everything, but a performance bond is a cost of business.
Okay. All right.
And as you know, the cable charges under Spectrum have gone up considerably.
And has anybody projected the attrition of the subscriber base over the next 10 years?
In this ascertainment document, there's a number of studies that are quoted, and it's severe.
And in that case, are you planning on coming to, I mean, it'd be great in a blue sky world if we could get money from, you know, people streaming, you know, Batman or something, but in the event that we can't do that, are you going to come to the select boards and ask them to subsidize the funding? How are we going to keep CTSB going?
I'm a selectman in Sheffield. I have no plans to ask whoever's on the select board to subsidize cable TV.
We have.
I didn't say cable TV, I said CTSB.
Cable
have to come from
TV
CTSB.
is a part of that,
Yeah.
okay?
I'm just saying, if we lose half the revenues to CTSB, you know, the question is, can they as a nonprofit continue as a going concern?
We don't know.
No, we don't know, but I will
Yeah.
tell you this, as a committee, beyond the working group that put together this, we are taking as our charge to find revenue streams for CTSB that are not going to subscribers for them.
So if we were successful, and we're not the ones who are driving this, it's the Mass Legislature, okay? And this is a problem that isn't in Massachusetts, it's across the country.
Right.
The fact is that people, according to this legislation, are dipping and experiencing, but they're not paying anything. And you can imagine that the streaming companies are already screaming, and this is probably one reason why it didn't make it through the Mass Legislature. But there is a strong move at the legislative level to come up with a way to charge streaming companies for what they're borrowing. And if that legislation is not passed at some level, then there is going to be a problem. Now, I know that Rich can speak to this in his report, unless he wants to speak to it now. Maybe you should, Rich. What you are doing at the CTSB level to find additional revenue sources.
It's something we talk about all the time, and we feel it has to come from streaming services. The headlines 1 week ago, more people now are streaming than subscribe to cable. So we've already crossed that threshold, but other revenue sources, you know, other than maybe writing for grants and such like that.
Sponsorships, I know you've
Yeah,
discussed.
and sponsorships, but trying to raise $500,000 a year, I think would be, quite the challenge. And if we lost any revenue, we would be in trouble because it's only a staff of 4. So our revenue covers the salary for staff of 4 plus equipment. So we barely make it. But no, we're hopeful that it'll be resolved, that someday we can receive funding through streaming services.
And it's also interesting as to, John could speak to this, what are the cable TV providers going to do? Is there going to be further consolidation in the industry, as has been going on and on and on? Are they going to have to raise prices to the point that nobody can afford it, and therefore they put themselves out of business, and everything goes to streaming, and as a result, all of this is out the window? I mean, you're asking for projections that I think are beyond all of us, but are extremely concerning. Right,
They
John?
are concerning, but it's called crystal ball.
Cutting the
what you
cord,
see.
yep. More and more people cut the cord. But to go back to your question, so if you have a $100 cable bill, you pay 5% of that is $5. So you pay $5 towards CTSB, and they're asking for an additional 95 cents, so that would be almost $6 per subscriber.
Yeah,
to
my cable bill is
support CTSB.
$268 a month.
That's not your cable TV, that's your
No, it's
internet,
the
your
internet cable.
broadband.
That's true.
We only can deal with cable
Yeah,
TV,
it's just
we don't deal with the rest
cable
of it.
revenue only.
But the cable portion of it is about $120.
So should pay a little more than $5 on that. But it is a consideration. It's community needs based on cost, so it is taken into consideration.
And unfortunately, the people that are going to streaming is everybody who's young. And as our community continues, I mean, we have an older population in Sheffield. As we continue to die out, there goes a cable TV license with it. I hate to be so morbid, but the younger folks, they don't want anything to do with cable TV. They can get it 9 ways to, on their whatevers, whether it's their iPads or their cell phones or whatever.
But my recollection is that CTSB is in pretty good shape financially, right? You own the building, right? You own the building, and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash reserves.
I wouldn't say hundreds of thousands, I would say maybe 100.
At one point, you had more than that, so.
Well,
They have their own building.
that's exactly the point. It's a
Right.
diminishing curve here.
Yeah, they have their own building, they have solar on it, they have managed their money extremely well. They have managed their interface with the community extremely well. They have expanded their programming. They do more in the towns on education and with the public. Shakespeare Festival, huge. So I think, you raise an incredible point that I think is beyond all of us. You hope for the best, you plan for the worst, and you move forward.
And we try and be creative and find, as I said, new sources of revenue that are legal because they are nonprofit.
What else? That's it?
I have another difficult question.
I am.
You sort of hinted at the beginning that negotiations, we don't have it's not like we can say, well, we're going to go to some other company. So any idea how likely, 10 years ago was a long time, any idea how likely we are to get the things we want? And if they just say, you know what, no, take this or leave it.
I don't think, at least in my view, do you want to answer, Linda, because I have strong opinions on this, or should
Well,
I answer?
let's, I think your opinion and mine are pretty much the same on this.
This is a negotiation. I've done a lot of negotiation in my previous careers. Negotiation is not take it and leave it. We have proposed. It's their job to look at that and come back. I personally don't feel that anything that we have asked for is not already in multiple contracts in Massachusetts. Okay, charter. If I understand this correctly, John, you're basically Berkshire County. Okay.
No.
I mean, in Massachusetts,
75.
you're
Oh, we have
the fourth
75.
largest company in the country. So,
Yeah.
but aren't you mostly in Massachusetts, in Berkshire County?
In Worcester County.
And Worcester County.
Yes.
Okay. So there was no charter agreement that had come up in the last umpteen years that we could look at for comparison.
Yeah.
So we truly are on the cutting edge. But all of the language that we have asked for is standard. And if Time Warner had been here sitting, and receiving this, we probably would have asked for exactly the same thing. Our relationship has not been as smooth with Charter as it was with Time Warner.
And I want to throw in some additional information. And we were cutting edge 10 years ago with Time Warner.
Yeah.
We asked for things that became ultimately normal. And we like being on the cutting edge.
But again, I want to stress that nothing we're asking for, in my mind, is cutting edge, because it is in other approved contracts with Comcast and with Verizon, who are the other big carriers here. So it is going to be up to Charter to come back and tell us what they find acceptable or what they find not acceptable, and then to tell us why. And then we're going to negotiate. If it turns out that we don't have a negotiated agreement by the time this contract is up, February 23rd, I think it is, of 23, then the license will continue. And we have been in touch and had extensive conversations with Mass DTC, and they have the ability to give us extensions, okay, which they have indicated that if we are negotiating in good stead, which we plan to do, that they will give us those extensions, and it may be more than one extension. We might even get to the point where Pittsfield's contract is up, and then maybe we should consider joining forces, or Williamstown's contract is up, because those contracts are going to come up in the next year or two.
Yeah.
And maybe we should look at a larger base, but we're going to do our best, and John's sitting here, he's hearing all of this, he knows us all very well. We're going to do our best to get everything we can. There are some of these things that they don't necessarily have to say yes to, and we'll see what they do.
Is it possible to go to a 5-year contract?
We discussed that, and we also discussed it with our lawyer. And the concept is very inviting because the electronics industry is moving so fast that 5 years down the pike, we have no idea what's going to be out there. We don't have a crystal ball, it's just moving too fast, and we really don't know. However, we feel strongly that there are certain other things besides the advances of electronics themselves that need to be a solid framework. So we're going to try and balance it and have certain parts of the contract that we can review at 5 years, for instance.
Kind of like a checkpoint.
Yeah.
Our lawyer felt that given all the work, and this, you may not look like it, but this is hundreds of hours of work, okay? As someone who was involved in the last contract and someone who's involved in this, I wouldn't want to be starting this 3 years in.
Right.
It's too much work. And our lawyer advised us against a 5-year contract. The time goes too fast, you barely get going, and you have to start it again. If you've gotten what you want, why jeopardize it?
Yeah.
So, is it
make
off
sure
the
we
table? I don't know.
Make sure we have a
But
strong
it's what we're
framework
asking
for
for
a
at the
10-year.
And I think from a business point of view, if I was sitting in Charter's seat as a business person, I would want to have something firm for a number of years with a checkpoint in a certain number of years, which we have in the current contract. This stuff is too much to try to negotiate every 5 years. I mean, you know how quickly 5 years
I was going to
goes.
say, it would mean we'd start doing groundwork for the 5-year, like the day after we sign. That's how consuming this is.
But, the ultimate authority is going to rest with the select boards. All of the contracts are the same, except tailored to putting the town's name in. That has been the strength of this 5-town cable committee, is that we're not one town negotiating. When we went with our last contract with Time Warner, it was 4 towns in Sheffield, okay? And we put it together, and we did well, because Sheffield had certain things you guys didn't have.
That's right.
And you had certain things we didn't have, and we were able to leverage
and
those items
and-
with Time Warner Cable.
And frankly, we've had other towns ask us, a number of them, if they could join our group, our committee. And where we came up is we'd love to be able to have them. But if they're on a different head end, that it doesn't work.
It's a cable term.
And I don't think there are more than the 5 towns that are on this head end.
So I have a process question. You negotiate a contract, come to an agreement, then that same contract goes to 5 select boards, and I promise I'm not considering this, but can they then tinker individually?
Well,
or
we
is
would
it
hope that we have kept you informed enough
Right.
that you won't want to do that. Okay?
I will not be pushing to
Before we
that.
bring it to the towns for a sign-off, we'll bring it to the towns for comments.
So ideally, all 5 select boards vote to approve the same contract. Is that required?
We would have
Yes.
to talk to Charter about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier for them.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the other signatory.
But also it gives us a lot more bargaining strength.
Yeah, save us a lot of time.
You know, I would really encourage you, Ed, to read this now.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting there's anything in there I don't like.
No,
I just-
and, you know, I'm on our select board, as I said, in Sheffield. So I don't want our other 2 selectmen to say, what the heck have you negotiated at the last moment? I don't think this is smart at all. That's why we're asking everyone to put it on the website so people can look at it. As we go through this, all right, we are going to keep the 5 towns updated. It only makes sense for us to do that. We don't want any surprises at the end either. And if you have ideas, we want to incorporate them sooner than later. I don't believe it's fair to negotiate, oh, now that we've got that, there's just 3 more other things. That's not fair negotiating in my terms. So we need to know, and it's all here. It's all here for you to read, and that'll answer your questions, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not on the top of this. I've got other things too.
I did actually already spend about an hour on that, but it's a lot to digest in one reading.
Yes,
And-
especially when you're new at it.
And especially then when you see the summary slides, it brings questions up. For example, does that have in it the specific geographic areas and/or account of parcels where there's no service for each
Each
town?
of the towns, and it's in the back of the ascertainment,
Okay.
has what they call a strand map that Charter has given us.
Strand?
Strand
map.
or
Like
layout
stranded?
map.
Yes.
It shows where the unserved parts of town are. And you as a town have the right to ask Charter to go over those maps in more detail. You can look at those maps and you can see, you know, is it October Mountain? Okay, is it where there's no electricity? But that's between, you can get that straight with Charter.
Strand,
Okay.
just so you know what a strand is the cable coming into the area.
And John can even tell you after this meeting, how you look up in the wires and know where you have cable and where it gets closed, which is really important to know as you're going down the street. Okay.
Assuming there are unserved parts that the town wants to have served, is that part of this negotiation, or that's a separate discussion?
That's a separate negotiation.
Okay.
We have in here the general contract terms for what is installed free of charge for someone who wants to sign up for cable. There's a certain drop from an existing cable line, a certain distance. Beyond that distance, you get to pay. If there is no cable running down the street, there is a formula in there as to how that gets paid for.
Yeah.
All right, and that is on the homeowner or the person who wants cable. There's a specific formula that goes into that. Now, if the town wanted to use some of its own funds, like ARPA funds, to build out the town, then I'm sure John would be very interested in that.
And none of that would slow down this process?
Oh, no,
It's separate. Great.
it's quite separate.
Right.
It's quite
No,
separate.
but there is a formula in there. For instance, what is it? I forget how many homes per mile.
It's 20
20? I thought we were
homes per
17.
aerial mile.
I thought we were 17.
I think it's 20, John.
I think so.
I think it's 20 per aerial mile. So if you had an aerial mile, okay, and you had 20
A new
an aerial
development.
mile,
Right.
and you had 3 homes that wanted to have cable service. Well, there's a formula that's going to tell you how much they're going to pay and how much Charter's going to pay. Okay, I think at least in Sheffield, there's a reason why some of the areas aren't built out. And when you get beyond the 250 feet and you have a 1,000-foot driveway, why would you necessarily want cable TV if you could stream?
Right.
You may want internet, or you may want,
Talking about satellite when you say stream, or?
satellite's a different way, dish is a different delivery
No,
system.
I understand, but when you say if the wire's not coming down the street,
You're not getting internet that way.
you're not getting any of the internet that way
Yeah,
either.
right.
I don't see how you'd stream
But
this
if,
way.
but if you have a cable going down,
Right.
you have the cable going down, and you're 1,000 foot up, and your first 250, assuming there's no rocks, ledges, etc., is free, do you want to pay the extra distance, the extra 750 feet? Because some of the installation charges we've seen are, 5 figures, 10,000, 12,000, and that's for the person to determine.
All right.
What other questions?
Any other questions?
Do you have the links for this?
Supposedly,
Because
if
they
you
don't
press it, I think Dennis had it. We'll have to talk to Dennis about that. We'll get you those, okay?
Yeah, he's out of town.
He said that they were supposed to work. We'll get those to you, okay?
Um,
All right.
Thank you. It sounds like you actually were here 10 years ago, thank you.
I was here more than 10 years ago.
I've only been here too.
Like I said, this is something I haven't been spending a lot of time paying attention, so I'm glad.
And along with all of this, Great Barrington, I think, has put in its own internet downtown. Other people are doing that. I know when we looked into it at Sheffield, we wanted to know if the town wanted to build its own cable, and there was actually nobody's like, why? We're not happy, but why? And there's nobody that's going to come in. The costs of entry are too much. They'd have to build their own cable plant, or they'd have to take over Charter's franchise in these areas. The costs of entry are too much.
It's,
You get to Boston, you get 2 or 3 vendors, but not here.
And 10 years ago, and since then, actually, we have ventured out to call some other cable providers, and they're absolutely not interested.
Right.
Because the capital will never be made back.
Right, yeah.
So thank you for attending tonight. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to make a motion to close this public hearing.
Second.
Is it move, that's a motion? Okay. Second?
Second?
We're closed.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
I think everybody's in favor.
I've never seen a motion
Thank you.
to adjourn fail.
Should adjourn. We now have our regular.
The pizza's coming now?
Thank you, Ed.
Thank
It's
you.
nice to see you again.
And thanks for the red light.
Sure, yeah.
You're not staying for the regular meeting?
I'm gonna go down to Conservation Commission.
Okay.
We're on our Conservation Commission too.
All right.
That's always a fun one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we adjourned the hearing at 7, we'll call it 7:15. And now I'm calling the regular meeting to order. And because I'm seeing we have a quorum at 7:20. Okay?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 14th, 2022 as presented.
All in favor? All in favor?
Did we have a second?
Yeah.
I can't hear him. Okay.
All, it's been passed. Okay, we're done with that. Okay, next. Spectrum report.
Yes, well, first I want to say thank you for that extension. Appreciate that, with the holidays and back to school and whatnot, so I appreciate that from the prior hearing. I just want to try to, keep the communications going on a regular basis rather than waiting to the quarterly meetings. I know that I say that every meeting, but I think it's important for us to raise issues as they happen rather than wait a few months to address them. And I think that's been working well. I haven't received any complaints since the last meeting that I can recall, so that's a good sign, and hopefully moving forward, we can get back to the Time Warner ways, of less complaints and things going more smoothly or whatever. So yeah, that's just my high-level report for this evening. And I compliment all the hard work that all, you three especially, but all the committee has put into this, because it is a lot of work, I can tell.
Yeah.
As you said, hundreds of hours, it seems, and I know Dennis was very diligent about a lot of different things, and it's impressive, so.
We started this, I guess it was about a year ago. Right, did it?
Probably, or
I
maybe
don't know.
more.
It seems a long time.
Yeah.
I think we're in a very
Officially,
good,
we started doing it.
I think we're in a
around
very
year ago.
good position to
And we started
negotiate with
having
you. I think we know the
regular
issues. I think it's really good to have equal weight on the negotiation sides. I think we're going to be very ready to negotiate when we get your proposal back.
Yeah.
And I know as soon as we, at least for myself, as soon as we get your proposal back, I'm going to go through it a couple of times. And then I would assume that we would set up a meeting to get started with the phase 2 and the negotiations.
Yeah, we're gonna.
There's no reason to wait, you know, we just need to get started.
Right, because we have the holidays and that too.
I'm looking at something. That's wrong. I'm looking at it there. We really did work hard, but I'm going to say that I have become discouraged in terms of calling about certain things that just don't get fixed, and it's just. I brought it up at meetings, at the last couple of meetings, and that's lack of synchronicity between audio and video on a lot of channels. And it's getting worse because what's happening is it's almost a full second. And when you have a full second of where your signals are not synchronized, it starts playing games with your brains and you get headaches from it. And that's not good.
Yeah, have you
So
a
you have
local
to call
tech visit?
service. and
I
just-
call service.
You know, Linda, I
I call
don't think
service.
this is the place to deal with individual
No, this is
complaints.
not individual. I know a lot of people who say the
Well, then
same
they
thing.
all need to call service and just badger them and document it, and then get on John to run this to ground. And then if John doesn't get it done, send it to Melinda. We have been able to work relatively well. It's because I'm holding our customers to do their job. They have to submit complete documentation to John. You know, it's just not, I'm having a problem. They've got to tell him who's been out there, what the
George
number
has
is.
been out there.
Yeah, but again, I just don't think this is the place in a meeting for individual complaints.
Well, it's not individual complaints. It's 42 for
Well,
where I
42
live.
people aren't here, and 42 people should not be taking
They
this
call me
time.
because they know I'm.
Well, we're happy to send a tech out. If there's an issue with any customer in any town, we
we've had
want it
techs.
resolved.
We have practically a resident tech on our place there. Every day there's a tech there. But this is a problem that has not been solved. They've done rewiring because maybe you don't know, but my history in television goes back to my college days. And I know about a synchronized signal. And I know that if you're broadcasting, that signal is being synchronized in the studio. And it's your management that's not getting on the networks to synchronize it. Because it's on more than one network. It's on many of them. She's new on the committee and she's shaking her head. And she doesn't live in Lennox. Correct?
It's out of sync.
Okay. And at your home, in what town are you from? I'm sorry.
Stockbridge.
Stockbridge? Yep. And has a technician been out to look at it to
No, I always assumed it was our soundbar,
sound better?
but sometimes you can get it to get right.
Do you have a sound bar, Linda? My wife
I
got
have
one for
3
Christmas. I don't know
television
if she ever
sets.
signed it up.
I have
Connected
three.
it.
I have 3 television sets on 3 different boxes, and it's on everything. So it's not getting. Somebody is sitting at a level where they should be taking it to the networks and saying your signal is not correct. Your signal is not synchronized. And we're getting the complaints. That's what your people should be telling them. Because,
So you think it's the broadcasters, the programmers?
yeah,
Okay, I'll talk to George about that.
because it isn't on every show on the same network. And that's what, when it does that, then you know that if it was a channel that it was consistent on that channel, you'd say, well, it's somewhere in the pipeline. But when on the same show, you have some people that are synchronized and others that aren't, give me a break.
Okay, I'll have George look into that. At the head end level.
I don't think it's head end. Like I say,
Yeah, the
it's.
programmers, yeah.
I think it's at the satellite level. I think where the signal is bouncing.
Okay.
Okay, anything else for John? John, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
You're free to go if you want, but you can stay if you like.
Okay, no, I have a long ride, and I think the weather's cleared, so I think I'll go. But thank you. Thank you,
We
everybody.
look forward to your proposal.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Ctsb report.
Okay, so since we're on the subject of streaming, and I always hate to report about streaming to the Cable Advisory Commission because it's not the Internet Advisory Commission, but to stay relevant and up to date and keep people informed and tuned in, we stream a lot of stuff now. So at the last CAC meeting, I was asked if we had an app. And we do have an app. It's relatively new to us because we just got our new broadcasting cablecast system last year. So we do have an app. And the app is, so it's unbranded. So you can't go to the App Store and type in CTSB. You have to go to the App Store and type in Cablecast.
Cablecast.
Cablecast, yes. And it's a small green icon with like, maybe it's like a white flag or something like that. I mean, I know you can't really see my phone, but when you go to the app,
She's doing it right now.
oh, okay.
She's doing it right now.
You're presented with all the PEG stations in the state, all of them. You can watch every PEG station live from your phone or iPad. So it's really great, and this doesn't cost us anything. It was part of our new broadcast system. And if you click on CTSB, you get all 3 channels, and you get the town meetings, education, school meetings. It's all broken down by town, and you can watch one click, and our channel's playing. So it's really great. It's a great app. And the idea of having a branded app we thought it would be easier for people. They could type in CTSB and find us. So in order to have a branded app, we would have to pay about $1,200 per provider. So it would be $1,200 for Roku to have a CTSB app. It would be another $12 for Apple TV, another $12 for Amazon. So it would be about $6,000 plus to do branded apps for each, and you wouldn't get all the other PEG stations. So our board has found that this is great the way it is. So we're promoting it. We've got a billboard on our channel. We've posted it to Facebook. So we're making people aware of the app.
You're encouraging us to go away from what we represent.
It's so much easier, and even when people call, they're like, "I'm looking for something on your website."
He just got this up and it looks great.
Yeah. It's everything's in HD, and it's video on demand. So you can go to our website and type in Stockbridge September 7th and find the meeting you're looking for. If you want to watch it on our channel, you would have to sit there and wait for the slide to come up for what's playing for the next 5 hours and maybe hope that it's in that block, and it probably is not because there's so much programming. So it's the way of the future, and I hope that we receive funding through internet subscription someday, because it's obvious that cable, it's being cut by many people, including myself. I feel like a hypocrite, but for years I've streamed all of my news and information. So
The FCC is looking at the problems, and they recognize that community television is a very important thing in this country, that there are too many areas that are without local news and local events without community television. So they're looking at finally changing some of their regulations to help you people.
right, and one of them is the Preserving Community Television Act, I believe, and then there's the 3540 or 4035 Act in Massachusetts.
Are they targeting the providers or the ones that provide internet service? Or
Anyone who streams on public and private lands. So it would be a tax on them, and of course they're Netflix, and they're huge corporations, so that would be quite the battle.
Right, they're going
I would
after the
imagine.
Netflix,
Right, yeah.
not Charter.
No.
Not the
it
ones
would
that
be-
are providing internet access,
Right,
the ones
right.
that are providing internet programming.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see.
Yes.
Because there's probably within the next 2 years, there's going to be a huge possible shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that the NFL is going to move all access, so you can watch any NFL game anytime. There's a bidding war happening right now, and either Amazon, AT&T, they're all in on it because they all want to get in. If you pay any attention to cable television, one of the largest reasons why people maintain cable television is actually the NFL is the largest watched thing on it. And because they've been stuck with direct TV, they haven't been able to break out, but that's about to change.
Yeah, most people keep their cable packages because they're sports fans, and it's the only way to watch live sports is on cable. There's no way to stream it. So yeah,
That's our household.
it's when sports starts to stream, we're in really deep trouble. So we should pay close attention to
And it's
that.
already happened. Amazon bought WNBA, so you can watch the WNBA games on Amazon, which is a lower sport as far as popularity, but the NFL is the big one that's going to drop next year.
Well, Major League Baseball has been on Amazon and other streaming. Also, Hulu
As you
has.
can you watch that? So there's
They have like one.
so you
specific
can
game.
stream right now the NFL, but you still are in the Albany market.
Right. Oh yeah.
What the NFL is doing, you're gonna be able to watch any game from anywhere in the country at any time.
So you
That-
can watch your favorite team, not necessarily your local team.
Yes, and that's the big difference, is before the other one, yes, you could stream the baseball one, but you still only had either the Red Sox, Yankees, or Mets as your local one. This is completely different. This is the one that breaks it out and allows you to watch any game at any time with no restrictions. So all those geographic things that held people in place are about to fall.
All right. And our financial investment into streaming, it has been rather large. It's been well over $100,000. That's our new Cablecast hardware and software system, and our website. Right there's over $100,000 right there. Not to mention other devices that we use for live streaming events. So we have invested in it heavily. Let's see, my next item is our intern and student programs. This summer, CTSB was fortunate to have Michael Merrick from LaSalle University in Newton, Mass. Not to be confused with LaSalle. There's also a LaSalle University. Michael completed over 150 hours over the course of the summer working with staff on large events like the Jamie Raskin event and the Elizabeth Freeman event. the mass walking tour. He assisted our videographer Joe Fuchsia in the field and edit room. Michael did an excellent job over the summer, and the staff was very happy to have him. And we're looking forward to having more interns next year. We're already discussing scholarships, possible paid internships, and there's some colleges that will pay their interns as well. So we're already actively preparing to send out information to local high schools and colleges to get more interns for next year. And last year I worked with the Berkshire CIP kids, which are the students who come here for a college internship program. They attend BCC and they go through an internship, and these students have ADHD and high functioning autism spectrum, people with disabilities. And I worked with 5 of those kids last year, and there's 1 returning tomorrow, and then there's a tour next week, and we're expecting more students to come in. So that's really great. Students with IEPs or disabilities. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. I worked at Muddy Brook for a brief period of time with a student with on the autism spectrum. So that's a really great program. Yeah. So we're looking forward to working with more kids in the future and internships and scholarships. PCTV election night. Last week for the primaries, we because of our new system, we can just share a link, and PCTV pops up on our broadcast, and they have reporters who throughout the night bring election results for the primaries and regular election night coming up on November 8th. They do a great job bringing in the results, so we ran that last week for the primaries, and we'll be running that again November 8th. It comes out of PCTV, and that gives, it's a big year for the DA race and the sheriff race, and this is really great. Because we can bring people up to the minute live results. Memberships and CTSB programs. Our current membership stands at 168 members, the most ever. We continue to grow our viewership online as people move away from cable. And I was mentioning before the recent headlines just last week that more people are streaming now than subscribing to cable. We continue our advertising efforts to make people aware of what they can do at our studio and how they can watch, especially our channel numbers. So right now we have at the Triplex Cinema in Great Barrington, we have a giant slide of our channel numbers and our watch campaign. And the slide is a picture of the Elizabeth Freeman statue that was just unveiled in Sheffield. So we have a great slide. If you're there to catch a movie, show up early and you'll see the CTSB slide on the big screen. CTSB has, we've mastered live streaming events, such as the Elizabeth Freeman, our Fall Festival of Shakespeare. Our staff does a great job. They work beyond regular business hours into the evening. We have Zoom meetings, we have weekend events. Our videographer, Joe Fuchsia, has a special called Community Features. So Joe covers iWow, concerts in the park, ice cream socials, new business openings, historical commissions, political debates. Patrick just called me the other day because we're going to send our videographer to the Red Lion Inn with Patrick and one of the Fitzpatricks and Nancy Fitzpatrick. And they're going to do a tour of all the artwork in the Red Lion Inn because only Nancy really knows where all that has come from. So that's another great program that'll be coming up soon. And Joe also recently, we even help out in Otis. We went down to Otis and they had a little one-room schoolhouse that was lifted off its old foundation and put onto a new foundation, and Joe was there to document that. And we also work with the Farmington River middle school students. They did a PSA over the summer and a game show. So we have a continued partnership with them as well. If anyone is listening tonight and you want something in your community recorded or documented and you want to share it on your social media with everyone, there's no cost. Just call us. It's 413-243-8211. Tell us about a great community event and we'll send our videographer. Again, internships and scholarships are available. So yeah, just reach out to us and watch us on channel 1301, 1302, and 1303. And of course, download our Cablecast app and stream us. And that's my report. One last thing. We were just featured, Cablecast, the company that provided our hardware and software, they featured us in this article out of Minneapolis, and it's all about how CTSB is on the cutting edge, the latest equipment and technology, how we use it to stream, how we use it remotely, and it's a really great article. It just came out yesterday, and I'll leave a few copies here for you to read at home tonight, all about our cutting edge work with Cablecast.
So, Rich, I know you've got Ben Hillman helping you, who I've
Yes.
always admired and think he does absolutely outstanding work. Are you setting this out as a press release? I mean, I think you need to have more exposure
Right.
in the Berkshire Eagle. I mean, I'm always blown away when I hear about your reports every quarter. But I wonder how many people know about this, and I know a lot of people don't read newspapers anymore. But, you know, Heather Bellows does wonderful work, and a press release to the Edge and to the Eagle. I just wonder how many people know about the wonderful things that you're doing.
Right, I will reach out to them for sure.
Yeah.
And generally, our board president, Mary Philpott, sends out press releases for scholarships and video competitions and things like that. So we have been in the paper, but we can never be in there enough. So
Yeah,
this will certainly go
I
out.
read the Edge and Eagle every day, and I don't see
I
things
read
about
the
you.
Eagle every day.
I'm just gonna ask you to ask Bender, because you're doing so much great stuff.
Yes.
And the community needs to know more about this.
Right, there should be an upcoming nonprofit Center of the Berkshires insert in the Eagle, and we're listed in there.
Right.
And we have a photo and a profile of what we offer and who we are and all that. So we do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes when the papers approach us, they want to talk about our lack of funding or the rough road ahead. And we let them know the great things that we're doing.
Yes.
But yes, we certainly will let them know about this.
And of course, it's a 501c3, right?
Yes,
You are eligible for public donations, which are tax exempt.
right.
But as you pointed out, on cable TV, it's very difficult to watch CTSB. It's in 4-hour blocks, so even if you know when the show is on, you have to record 4 hours or
Right.
sit there and watch it. Plus, it's in standard definition.
Right.
So it's a terrible broadcast. So I've always watched on the website and shared that. So I'm excited to see this new app. It was in your report,
Yes.
right? So I thank you, and I
Great.
downloaded it, and it's very good.
Yeah, it's great. You can watch PEG stations on the Cape and watch them cooking shows and things like that. So it's a great app. Yes, it's unfortunate that we are in standard definition because we're putting out a high definition signal out of our building, and when it goes to Spectrum, it gets downgraded. So we're fully capable of being in high definition without one more penny of equipment or software or anything. The signal actually goes out in HD right now, and it's pulled back, and that's a problem with. That's a problem with doing the closed captioning, is that the bandwidth is so small for that standard definition signal. If we add that closed captioning, that little line at the bottom requires a little bit more bandwidth, and it's being held back by Spectrum. So that's another unfortunate part of the bandwidth in the standard definition.
That's a shame. Is that in the? Yeah.
We'll be negotiating that.
Good.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
You're doing wonderful things.
Thank you.
And we are, as a committee, we are looking at every avenue that we can to explore, to give you support that you need, both financial and otherwise.
Yes, I thank you for your hard work. You're doing amazing work, and it's certainly David versus Goliath, and I understand we won't get everything.
No, but
and
you
that's-
can poke a finger in an eye.
Let's not negate our possibilities yet.
Right.
I know that once the
I know
new
that.
session is in place, that there'll be, I think they have until the end of January to file new bills and amendments, and, at our December meeting, I want to bring forward a letter regarding whatever is the follow-on to that bill that is to charge streaming. So we can get that on the agenda for December, so that we'll be in place to send it to our reps and senator come January 1.
Yep.
Great.
So
Thank you. Let's see. I don't think we have any citizens to speak. We have all members here. So, but I'm going to throw in a thing that involves people. Sean Sarah in Pittsfield is trying to pull together not just the central towns there, but include us and northern Berkshire in trying to see if we can first we'll start by saying it'll be a loose but an association there where we would all work towards the same ends. And with us having the first contract coming up, they're all interested in what we're doing and how they can use our negotiations as, they can use the coattails of our negotiations. And Sean is willing to actually sponsor and pull together a consortium in Pittsfield for us to attend. And I think we will send, I don't know how many of us will go, but we'll at least have representatives if he can do that.
Yeah, that would be great in helping them out with their contracts. I just hope that we don't approach the idea of a consolidation where.
No.
Okay.
We'll still be the same, but this is just in terms of negotiation and what we are negotiating, and maybe if we're all asking for the same thing. It's actually easier for Charter to give it to us because it'll be all in the one area.
Right.
So I'm keeping in touch with Sean. He hasn't given me any information yet, but that's what he indicated that he wanted to do.
Yeah, and Sean's very, very knowledgeable
Yeah.
of the situation and all the state bills, and Sean's made a full career out of community television, so he's very knowledgeable and like you all, a great fighter for the cause.
Okay, do we have any new business? Any other business?
Well, I just want to, I wasn't part of the ascertainment, but I read the whole thing. I was very, very impressed as how thorough it was and what a great job you people did. I'm
Well, thank you.
very pleased.
We worked
Thank
very
you.
hard. And Dennis, I wish he was here
I know.
because Dennis did the tough stuff.
Could have used him on some of the teacher negotiations I was involved in years ago.
No, not the negotiating part. He did the digging.
Well, he did, yeah.
He did all digging up all.
Dennis loves data.
Yeah.
As I said, I love to take data and turn it into words, but Dennis loves data. And the stuff that he did,
Yeah,
When,
it shows.
excellent, just excellent.
when Dennis came on board, I had him do an exercise that Malcolm did, you remember Malcolm?
Oh, yeah.
With me when I came on board. And that was, he had me go to the Mass DTC website and look at all the contracts that were of a certain age, and look at them and read them and absorb them to have it. And my head was spinning when I finished, but I had a lot of knowledge thrown in there. And I had Dennis do the same thing. And he said, at first it sounded, and he saw how many there were, it sounded like it was a terrible thing to do to somebody. But as he got into it, he said, thank you. He says, now I know what goes on. And so And he really dug in from that point on, and we really owe him a debt of gratitude because I get a headache from doing that much stuff, that much detail. Yeah. And I think Renee will vouch for you can get a headache from it too.
Oh, yes, I like to do other details, like contracts. Yeah, that's my love. Yeah.
Okay,
It's a
so
good team.
we have a new member. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Anita Schwerner, and I live in Stockbridge. So I'm happy to join the committee, and I read the Ascertainment Report, and it's very impressive, as well as your reports.
Okay, so you see, there are people who think committees like this just, are social gatherings. No. No, we actually do work. So anyway, the next meeting, actually I have on the agenda here, I have the wrong date. It says September 13th, but it's December 13th. I believe it's the 13th, but it's the second Tuesday in December.
Yes.
It was corrected when I sent it out.
Excuse me?
It was corrected to December, the one I sent out.
Oh, thank you, Denise.
I thought I sent it to you, but that's okay.
I've been buried in detail that my head is not totally there. And my husband's.
And that's
not
in Lee,
well.
Denise?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
December 13th, 6:30 p.m. in Lee. Because we did flip-flop. Because Lee was supposed to have this meeting. And they had the one room that they have that's big enough to accommodate something like that was taken like months before that. And so Stockbridge was kind enough to flip-flop, and I think it was better for Stockbridge to be here anyway this time. Looked out, because we'll probably get a snowstorm
Yeah, I know.
in December.
Don't say that.
Versus the rain we had here today. I'd rather have the rain, thank you. All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we're adjourned.